because it kind of, you know, watching the show, it almost felt like a series ending. It was like, wow, okay, that's kind of wrapped up. They're going off in the way, but clearly it isn't, and you knew it wasn't when you wrote it. So, you know, when it was, so where, can you give us a hint of where we're going?
Well, we're going underground. I mean, we have, everything's been stripped from us. You've basically got a, this is what I feel, a Samaritan is going to become massively powerful, even more powerful than its master. And it's really the good versus evil, major Samaritan, and the machine has a lifeline, but barely. We have been stripped of, you know, all of our resources as far as cash, money. You know, we can't access that. You know, one thing we have going for us is that the machine, unknown to Decima, is it doesn't, or the Samaritan machine does not, can't recognize us. Decima doesn't know that, but that's pretty much it. And Finch emphasizes clearly, covers. Now you have characters that are these fish out of waters that are, you know, can be advantageous, where I might be a guy who's doing a specific job. It's way overqualified, superhero-esque kind of thing, and there's a lot of humor in that. How would you know that? You know, and so that they've done a great job with all those characters. They make them. There's some great strengths to them, but incredible weakness to them too. That are, you know, it's like us people. I don't do well at answering questions. I'm better at acting.
Hey, so far.
Yeah.
Totally passed the buck.
Well, you've also lost each other, and everybody just like scattered. Will we be able to see our crowd come back together? Or?
Well, that's the real challenge, isn't it? I think in order to be true to where we ended last season, we almost imagine it was a diaspora. All our guys were forced to split up, go their own way. As Jim said, they all have alter egos essentially. And it's almost more of a comic book convention that you would imagine. They have day jobs. There's a Clark Kent aspect to this now that they have to maintain. And doing that with a character like Reese or Shaw, you're thrusting them in a position where it's almost like a caged lion. They're very upset with the idea that they feel like they've been rendered futile in a way. It's like, what am I doing this silly job for when we should be getting out in front of these things? We should be getting out in front of these numbers. And I think there's a bottleneck with the numbers. And then you're going to see that they resume, but at a very critical juncture in the premiere for a reason. And I think if we imagine the first 3 seasons of this show about living in an Orwellian surveillance state, the show is now evolving into an area where artificial intelligence becomes the preeminent existential risk that not only our guys are encountering, but the world. And we think it's a lot of fun. And as Jim said, Samaritan is very powerful. And it's almost as though the machine and Samaritan are looking at through the same lenses, but processing them differently. This season is about a war. It's a war between two machines, almost a Cold War, if you call the United States and the Soviet Union at one point in time, where jockeying.
Godzilla and
There's that one too.
Well, you were talking about the fact that Samaritan is super powerful because it has new processors now, and the machine has got, 10-year-old processors or whatever. But I always got the impression that the machine was smarter because it has a sense of morality that it got from Finch. So, but Samaritan doesn't have that guidance.
It is an ego machine. But, so, and you know, when you listen to the senator talk and all these guys, this thing will take away all your problems, but it's Pandora's box.
Yeah.
It comes around and it bites you. It can think for itself. There's no, what do you call it, where Finch put these little, this immune system in it that kind of gave it a conscience to, you know, to save those lives that are, you know, that we look past. And I think of this season as survive and advance with the mission. And what the writers have done so well, brilliantly, is as complex as the story could get. Generally, some guys walk in.
Go ahead, say that part. What was that last part again, Jim?
the writer's bit is the simplicity of human beings. And I think that's what people love about it. It's it saves lives. Yeah, I could watch a show out of nowhere. I don't know how many times at least a guy that didn't fully understand all this stuff, but he understood there was a basic element. There's a number that saved this life, and the level of commitment with these guys. They're like a group of Jedi warriors, and they come together, and right now they're broken apart, and they're trying to communicate, and it's about survival, keeping that cover, but there's a level of where other guys, let's say, I think at all costs we have to risk this one particular episode that we're shooting right now. Now you have this stuff going on between Finch and Reese of, this, we don't do something right now, this girl dies. I can tell you that right now. And he says, no, better to, maybe, he's not saying this, but better to one die than the entire mission collapse. And so this is where the dilemma really starts to play out.
It's funny that you use you likened it to Star Wars a little bit. It sounds like the way you're teeing this up is like you guys are leading a rebellion against a pretty significant technology-driven empire.
The empire is striking back.
That's exactly
it's really, how do we do this now? And there are, I might be good here, but I need Finch to do this. Yeah. And Sarah's great here, Shahi's great here, but Ruth's over here. And so, how do we communicate? So we sometimes have to use our POIs or other people to get what we need, and but right now is trying to get our feet, just survive, and then it's going to be how do we communicate, and then it's how do we have the resources to get the munitions that we need to fight these guys.
Or organize. It sounds like this season is bringing you guys back together in some kind of ragtag rebellious fashion, maybe.
Absolutely. I think that's a challenge. Jim said, how are our guys going to communicate? How are they going to work these numbers? There's someone watching them at all times. Now, what Root built into the servers was aliases or identities for our guys. Now, what that doesn't protect them from, if they engage in anomalous behavior to a certain degree, where they draw the attention of law enforcement in such a way, we understand that Samaritan's hooked into that, and that becomes problematic. So even though it can hide them in the eyes of Samaritan to a degree, it can't hide them from a human operative that works for Samaritan.
Which is really emphasizing not drawing attention to ourselves. And sometimes characters, will do that, or I will, or whatever, because of the idea is that, is it better to let this one die? And conflict is fantastic at that point. And there is what do they say? Our liabilities are overflows of our assets.
Interesting. So, Jim, Reese is such a taciturn character. As an actor, how do you approach that when you don't have as many words as, say, Finch has got to get what's going on in your character's head out so you can see that?
I always believe that words are used as a device to communicate, and if you don't need to communicate with words, it's more interesting and artistic to use, stuff that really knowledgeable. Used first with the thin red line, and a lot of it is I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this. It's different. Everybody has a different interpretation of what he was thinking, or what I find more fascinating.
There's so many different modes of communication, and one of my favorite scenes last year, Jim and Michael were in Italy after, they landed, and he was questioning his own disillusionment with the machine and the advent of Carter's death, and he has that scene where he sits down with Michael, and Jim conveys so much in that scene non-verbally that it, to me, felt even more emotional. It was really fantastic. It was really great.
Now, guys, we have one more question. When you need to.
I think you co-wrote the premiere, like Panopticon. Can you describe or talk about the significance of that title, what we should expect? I looked at the definition, but I just wanted to see what you had to say.
Certainly, there's a literal definition of panopticon. It largely revolves around the notion of a prison system, whereby there's one central, almost tower that can view all cells at one time. But the more figurative definition of panopticon is kind of what we're all living in now, which is, whether it's London's Ring of Steel or Bloomberg's cameras, we know someone's always watching.
Yeah.
All this stuff that's dribbling out there, Edward Snowden in the garden, we kind of know.
I live in Brooklyn. Woke up in the morning. I said, "Hey, get on the phone. There are white flags on the Brooklyn Bridge, and huge. And sure enough, they had these guys on surveillance, but the images were a little bit. They couldn't quite make that out. So they'll probably start doing a little bit of upgrade on their imaging. But yeah, it's another 5 people.
Let's take it for granted we're all living in a panopticon. And there was something really interesting that happened in the Arab Spring, where a government was monitoring social media, was monitoring people organizing, trying, basically a rebellion. And we're using social media against those people, incarcerating those people, even torturing people who were looking to bring about change in their country. And something arose during the Arab Spring as a form of communication, a bit of subterfuge, almost a guerrilla network, which we thought was really interesting. And we think that's a fun place to start off in the premiere. So how do you go up against the panopticon? How do you communicate? How do you do anything? You get a number. How can our guys even talk on the phone? We had a great field trip at the beginning of the year. All the writers went to Google. It was eye-opening.
Can I ask one really quick question? The glass with the cracks and the tape, with all the state-of-the-art equipment that they had, why was that glass broken?
Yeah, why did Finch keep that glass there?
Are you talking about in the
library?
Yeah, every time when they set up the case and put the numbers and
Why are we not looking at a monitor instead of a broken piece of glass?
Oh, yeah.
no, that's fine.
Well, we look at monitors all the time on our show in the library as well. But the glass board largely became symbolic of the person of interest, the number that went up, and it was a way to sort of network it out. And, if there was one tip of the hat to traditional procedural, that would get in. The reason it's glass, of course, is because any director wants depth in a shot. He doesn't want to flat. But then we thought the shattering of it was very symbolic.
It broke my heart, actually.
Yeah.
The library's gone.
Right.
But there's going to be a new set that arises in its wake.
Pretty awesome.
Great to see.
Phoenix and the
Okay, guys.
Thank you so much.
A lot of fun, guys.